If you enjoy haunted house stories that leave you with that feeling something is still lurking around, this video is for you. Tonight you'll hear real accounts of strange presences, objects that move on their own, and houses hiding secrets no one has ever been able to explain. Like the story you're about to hear, where a family begins to notice sounds coming from inside the walls, noises that shouldn't be there, and that seem to be waiting for the right moment to show up again. But before we dive into the story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any terrifying stories. And tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from. The first noise came from the hallway wall at exactly 3:17 a.m. I remember it like it was yesterday. That dull thud, like someone had knocked their knuckles against the drywall. My husband, Jake, jolted awake, convinced it was a burglar. I grabbed his arm, listening to his ragged breathing in the dark. "It's the house," I whispered. "The house made that noise." We laughed it off the next morning, of course. "Probably just a rat," Jake said, pounding his fist against the wall like that would scare off some imaginary critter. But there was nothing there. No tracks, no holes, no sign that anything alive could be squeezing through the walls. Just those old, solid bricks, the kind that last for centuries, laid back when England still rode in horse-drawn carriages. But the noises didn't stop. They always came in the dead of night, as if whatever or whoever was inside knew exactly when we were most vulnerable. It wasn't just knocking. There were scratches, long and slow, like nails dragging from top to bottom. Once I swear I heard a sigh. A human sigh coming from inside the kid's bedroom wall. That's when the fear really sank its teeth into us. Jake decided to investigate. He's the type who thinks everything has an explanation. Leaks, drafts, maybe even a lost bird. But when he shoved his flashlight into the only gap he could find, a poorly sealed corner behind the dresser, the air turned icy. It wasn't a natural hole. Someone had patched it up in a hurry, and badly. And when he touched the plaster, I saw his face change. "Something's not right here," he muttered. That was the night the flies appeared. They didn't come from anywhere. They were just suddenly there, buzzing in the bedroom like they'd been summoned. These weren't normal flies. They were too dark, almost black, and they clustered in the same corner near that hole in the wall. I'm the daughter of immigrants, and in my culture flies like that are a warning. A sign that something unclean is near. Something that shouldn't be here. Jake, of course, didn't believe it. "It's just dirt," he insisted, spraying poison and sealing the hole for good. And for a while, it worked. The flies vanished. The noises stopped. We even started sleeping again, but the house never stays quiet for long. A year later, at the exact same time, the sounds came back. This time, louder, more deliberate. It was like whatever was inside knew we'd tried to ignore it, and now it was taunting us. One night I grabbed my phone, determined to record it, to prove I wasn't losing my mind. But the second I hit the record button, the noises stopped, as if they knew. Then one random night, silence. No knocking, no scratching, just that heavy emptiness like the walls were holding their breath. That's when I realized the worst. The sounds hadn't gone away. They were waiting, and I had no idea what was coming next. It was the third summer when the walls started breathing. I'm not exaggerating. Have you ever put your hand on someone's chest? That slow rise, the warmth, the movement of something alive? That's exactly what our bedroom wall was doing. In the afternoon, you could swear the bricks were swelling and shrinking, like something massive was curled up inside, waiting. We tried to ignore it. Seriously, we did. Jake even joked, "Maybe the house has a heart and it's beating wrong." But his laugh was hollow. We both knew it wasn't funny. The kids felt it too. My youngest, Liam, started drawing dark figures in his notebooks. Tall men with broken legs, crawling out of the walls. When I asked him about it, he just said, "It's what I dream about." Then came the smell. Sweet and rotten at the same time, like spoiled fruit and meat left in the sun. It came from that hole Jake had sealed, even though the cement was still intact. I covered it with towels, burned incense, but the stench clung to the air, like it had become part of the house. One night, I woke up to the smell so strong I thought something had died in the room. And when I turned on the light, I saw the stains, small, dark, oozing from the ceiling. It wasn't water. It was thick, sticky, and when I touched it, God, it was warm. Jake finally admitted we needed help. We called a plumber, thinking it might be a leak. The guy came, poked around, and after half an hour, he stopped dead. "Ma'am," he said, staring at the wall like it had spoken to him, "there ain't no pipes here. Nothing that could explain this." He left fast, didn't even charge us. That's when the knocking came back, but now it had a rhythm. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, like a code, like something was trying to communicate. I looked it up, of course. Online, everyone's got a theory. Ghosts, demons, even hallucinogenic gas leaks. But nothing explained what happened that Friday. I was alone in the house. Jake had taken the kids to his mom's, finally convinced something was wrong, and the house knew. It knew we were scared. The knocking grew louder, almost furious, and then silence. I held my breath, staring at the wall like it might explode. And then I heard it. Something scratching on the other side. Not a rat, not an insect. It was deliberate, like bony fingers clawing at the brick, millimeter by millimeter toward me. I froze. Because deep down I already knew it didn't want out. It wanted me to come in. And the worst part? For a second I wanted to open the wall. I wanted to see what was there. Because after all that time, the unknown scared me less than the doubt. That's when the cement in the hole started cracking on its own. I don't know what I planned to do. Smash the wall? Run? All I know is my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the hammer. And then, plink, a chunk of plaster fell away and the dark hole grew bigger. Inside there was nothing, just darkness, but wrong. It wasn't the empty darkness of a wall. It was thick, like the space inside was deeper than it should be. And the smell. God, the smell got worse, like opening a long-forgotten coffin. I should have run, but something pulled me forward, and when I reached my hand toward the edge of the hole, something reached back. It was just a touch, quick, icy, but unmistakably human. I screamed and stumbled back, but it was too late. The hole began to stretch. The brick cracked on its own like it was being pushed from within. And then I heard it. A voice, not a whisper. It was multiple voices, all speaking at once, pouring out of that impossible space. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone. It was hunger. Something that had waited a very, very long time. The wall started to bulge, like something enormous was writhing to get out. The wallpaper tore, and for a second I swear I saw fingers, long, pale, with broken nails, clutching at the edge. That's when I ran. I left that house and never went back. Jake wanted to call a priest, a ghost hunter, but I knew it wouldn't help. We weren't dealing with a ghost. It was something worse, something that had grown inside those walls, fed by every second we ignored the signs. The house is still there, somewhere in England. The new owners say they don't hear anything, but I know the truth. It's just waiting for them to stop listening. Creepy, right? What did you think of the story? On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate it? Share your thoughts down in the comments. Some things make noise and others show themselves in complete silence. The next story begins with a simple cleaning day, but ends with knives disappearing, stains spreading across the floor, and a swarm of flies no one could explain. The knife was gone. I swear I left it on the kitchen counter, but when I turned my back for 5 seconds, it just vanished. It was the first sign that something was wrong in that house in Amsterdam. Lena and I worked cleaning places where people had died. Houses, apartments, sometimes even offices. Nothing out of the ordinary. Taking out the trash, scrubbing stains, making everything spotless for the next tenant. We'd seen it all. Dried blood, forgotten medication, old photos of people who no longer existed. But that house was different. The old man who lived there had died alone, and his son, who lived in Rotterdam, hired us to make the place presentable for sale. When we walked in, the smell hit us like a wall. That heavy, musty odor mixed with something else, sweet and rotten at the same time. Lena made a face, but I ignored it. A job's a job. The kitchen was small with dark wooden cabinets and a worn-out floor. I set my cleaning knife on the counter while organizing the supplies, and when I turned back to grab it, poof, gone. I searched everywhere, under the table, in the cabinets, even in the trash. Nothing. "Lena, did you take my knife?" She looked at me, frowning. "No." "Why?" Before I could answer, she pointed to the living room floor. "Look at that." Stains. Not the usual coffee or water stains. These were dark, almost black, with jagged edges, like someone had spilled something thick and tried to clean it up in a hurry. I crouched down and ran a gloved finger over them. The texture was strange, sticky, but dry. That's when Lena took a step back, eyes wide. "Did you see that?" I looked at the wall. A shadow. Not a reflection, not a trick of the light. It was a human figure, tall, thin, moving slowly, as if it were walking across the room. But there was no one there. The house was empty. My heart raced. I ran to the window and looked outside. Nothing. The backyard was small, enclosed by a high wall, no trees or anything that could cast that shadow. When I turned back, it was gone. Lena was pale. "Let's finish up and get out of here." I agreed. The atmosphere in the house had shifted. The air felt heavier, like someone was holding their breath while we moved. Every sound we made echoed strangely, as if the walls were watching us. We sped through the work. We tried to scrub the stains with bleach, but they wouldn't come out completely. There was always a trace left, like the dirt was alive, refusing to leave. That's when the phone rang. It was my dad, the owner of the business. "How's the cleanup going?" "Weird," I admitted. "Knives are disappearing, there are stains that won't come out, and we saw a shadow." He was silent for a second. "Finish up and get out of there. I'll call you back soon." I hung up and looked at Lena. She was standing in the middle of the room, staring upward. I followed her gaze, and that's when I saw them. Flies. Dozens of them, appearing out of nowhere, buzzing in slow circles, as if they were waiting. The house had been sealed for days, no food, no trash, nothing to attract insects. We'd already cleaned everything, but there they were, landing on the walls, on the floor, on our tools. Lena grabbed her stuff at lightning speed. "We're leaving. Now." I didn't argue. As I locked the door, I swear I heard a noise from inside. A slow, dragging sound, moving toward the entrance. I didn't look back. Outside, the sun was still shining, but the air felt icy. My hands shook as I loaded the supplies into the car. Lena was already in the passenger seat, staring at the house like she expected something to come running after us. The phone rang again. It was my dad, his voice more serious than usual. "I sold the house. Don't ever go back there." "What? How?" I asked, confused. "We hadn't even finished the job." "It doesn't matter, just stay away from there." He hung up without explaining. Lena and I exchanged a glance. She didn't need to say anything. Her expression confirmed what I was feeling. This wasn't normal. That night I woke up to a buzzing in my ear. It was faint at first, but it grew louder, more insistent, until I realized flies. I bolted upright, covered in cold sweat. The room was dark, silent, nothing. Just my imagination, I thought. But as I lay back down, something crinkled under my pillow. It was a knife. The same knife that had vanished in the house. My blood ran cold. I threw it across the room, but it didn't help. The buzzing returned, now coming from the hallway. Something was dragging itself outside slowly, as if it were approaching. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and the shadow from the house was there. Tall, thin, standing in the hallway, as if it were watching me. I screamed. The lights flickered on. Lena burst into the room, startled. "What's wrong?" I pointed to the hallway. Nothing. The shadow was gone. "Did you hear it?" I asked, breathless. "Hear what?" The buzzing. She hadn't heard a thing. The next day, my dad showed up at my place, pale. He brought a bag of things he told us to burn. Old clothes, photos, a broken watch. Things from the old man's house. What happened there, Dad? I asked, holding the bag with disgust. He hesitated, like he didn't want to say. The old tenant. He didn't die of old age. How did he die? Knives. I froze. He used to hide knives from the kitchen, kept them under his pillow. One day the neighbors smelled something. When they opened the house, he didn't finish, he didn't need to. That night we burned everything. The flames rose high, and for a second, I swear I saw a figure in the smoke, tall, thin, watching. The buzzing stopped, but to this day, when I hear flies, I remember. And I never took another job on that street again. Scary, isn't it? Some houses hold on to an energy that no amount of bleach can wash away. Like the story you're about to hear now, where a silent presence watched from the mirror and left a mark that followed two sisters for the rest of their lives. There was something wrong with the mirror in my new bedroom from day one. I couldn't put my finger on it. The wrought iron frame looked normal. The glass wasn't cracked or stained. But every time I walked past it, I'd get that chill down my spine, the kind that tells you someone's watching. When I complained, Mom brushed it off as old house charm, but we'd just moved into that two-story place in Hartford. The house wasn't even old. It all started after the divorce. Dad kept the apartment in Boston, and Mom found this fresh start house for us. My room was upstairs with a massive wardrobe that cast shadows even in daylight, and that damn mirror propped against the hallway wall, like someone had forgotten to hang it up. On the third night, I woke up to a noise. It wasn't a crash or a scream. It was a wet whisper, like someone dragging damp fingers across glass. When I sat up, I saw the wardrobe door was open. I knew I'd closed it before bed, and that's when I noticed. The mirror wasn't reflecting the window behind me. Instead of moonlight, it showed a dark hallway. Then she appeared. A girl in a faded pink dress, the kind with frills that looked limp, like they'd been soaked in water. She didn't float or glow. She looked as solid as I did, except for her eyes. Too black, too deep, like they swallowed the light. She stood in the middle of that hallway that didn't exist, her left hand raised, as if she was about to tap the glass. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My body locked up, but my mind raced. This isn't a dream. I felt the cotton sheets against my legs, the metallic taste of fear in my mouth, the musty smell rising from the floorboards. Dreams don't have smells. The girl tilted her head to the left, slow, until her neck bent at an angle no real child could manage. Her mouth opened, and I heard it before I understood. A whisper leaking through the mirror. "Will you let me out?" The sound that clawed out of my throat wasn't even a scream. It was a raw animal whimper. In a blink, my fingers were scratching at the doorknob, my body slamming against the bedroom door. When I came back, shaking, with Mom holding a candle. The lights had just gone out. I only noticed then. The mirror was normal, just reflecting my messy room. "What are you looking at?" Mom asked, rubbing her eyes. I almost told her, almost pointed at that slab of glass and screamed about the girl, the hallway, the voice. But the candlelight made the mirror's frame cast a shadow on the floor, a shadow that moved on its own for half a second. So I lied. A rat. I thought I saw a rat. Over the next few months, I draped a sheet over the mirror. When Mom asked, I said it was for an art project. My 7-year-old sister Sarah laughed at me whenever she passed by. "Scared of the mirror witch, Claire?" I laughed along, but I never took the sheet off. Then winter came, and Sarah started waking up screaming. She never remembered the dreams, just mumbled about something pink in her room. Mom chalked it up to divorce trauma. The pediatrician prescribed chamomile tea. But I shared a bathroom with Sarah's room, and I started noticing things. Steam from the shower drawing tiny fingers on the mirror, even when Sarah wasn't home. The smell of old baby powder from the drain, and a pale pink smudge, the size of a fingerprint that kept reappearing on the window glass no matter how many times I wiped it away. It was a December afternoon, snow tapping at the window, when I caught Sarah staring fixedly at the bathroom mirror. "What's there?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't blink. "She says you promised." The air left my lungs. "Promised what?" Sarah finally turned to me, her smile not reaching her hollow eyes. That you'd let her out. Sarah changed after that day. She stopped waking up screaming, but she started doing strange things. She'd spend hours staring at her reflection in the turned-off TV. She'd doodle little girls in pink dresses in the corners of her notebooks. And once I caught her talking to herself in the bathroom, her voice low, like someone was on the other side of the door. "Who are you talking to?" I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. Sarah turned to me with a smile that didn't match her empty eyes. "My friend. She says you broke your promise." That night I dreamed about the mirror. In the dream, I was in the hallway of the old house, the same one I'd seen reflected in the glass months before. The floor was cold and sticky under my bare feet. At the end of the hall, the girl in pink stood with her back to me, dead blonde hair hanging like wet curtains. "You should have let me out," she whispered without turning. "Now I'll come out on my own." As she began to turn, I woke with the taste of blood in my mouth. I'd bitten my tongue. The next morning, Mom announced we were going camping. "We need some time away from this house," she said, looking at Sarah, who sat at the table, untouched cereal in front of her, eyes fixed on her reflection in the spoon. Blackwood Lake was beautiful in autumn. Still water, golden trees, the scent of pine in the air. I set up the tent with my school friends while Sarah stayed by the water's edge, alone, staring at the lake like she was waiting for something to rise. That night, as we lit the campfire, someone suggested telling ghost stories. That's when Sarah, out of nowhere, said, "There's a girl who lives in mirrors." Everyone laughed, but I felt a chill. "She wears an old pink dress," Sarah continued, her voice flat, "and she gets mad when you don't let her out." One of my friends cracked a joke, but Sarah ignored him. "She showed me how she died, drowned, in a lake like this." My heart stopped. Before I could react, Sarah pointed at the water behind us. "Look, she's here." Everyone turned. On the dark surface of the lake under the moonlight, something pink floated. It wasn't a scrap of fabric. It was the dress. And inside it, a pale shape began to rise. Limp blonde hair plastered to a face I couldn't quite make out. But I knew. I knew that when she lifted her head, her eyes would be too dark for a child's. The campfire died instantly, like someone had dumped an invisible bucket of water on it. Screams erupted around me, people stumbling in the dark. Someone yanked my arm, but I couldn't move. Because at the lake's edge, Sarah was walking toward the water, and behind her, reflected on the lake's surface but nowhere else, the girl in pink held her hand. I ran. The water was freezing, up to my knees as I grabbed Sarah by the shoulders. She fought back, surprisingly strong for a kid, snarling words that weren't hers. She promised to let me out." That's when I saw it. In the still water in front of us, the reflection wasn't ours. The girl in pink was now between us in the inverted image, clutching the reflection of Sarah's hand. And as I watched, horrified, my sister's reflection began to sink, pulled down by those pale little hands. Sarah convulsed in front of me, her eyes rolling back. Without thinking, I plunged my hand into the water and grabbed her reflection's wrist. It felt like touching raw flesh. A sharp pain shot up my arm, but I didn't let go. I pulled with all my strength, feeling something shatter in the air like breaking glass. Sarah collapsed into the water, coughing. When I looked again, the lake was still. Only the moon reflected on the surface. We took Sarah to the hospital that night. The doctors said it was an epileptic seizure brought on by stress. Mom believed them. My friends made up excuses about mass hysteria, but I know what I saw. Sometimes when I pass by a mirror, I still feel that chill. And if I look too long, I almost see a pink figure in the corner of the reflection, waiting. Because one thing the girl said was true: mirrors are doors, and doors can be opened from both sides. Terrifying. Some visions fade away, but others linger, scattered throughout the house, staring right back at you. The next story is about a house that seemed alive, filled with dolls, doors opening on their own, and a shadowy figure appearing where no one should have been. But before we move on, if you've made it this far, it means you're enjoying these stories. So go ahead and hit the like button to let YouTube know you're into this kind of content, and so you don't miss the next chilling story. I'll never forget the smell of that house. It was a mix of mildew, old wood, and something else. Something sweet, almost like baby powder, but sour, like someone had tried to mask the rot with cheap perfume. We arrived on a rainy autumn day, the clouds so heavy they seemed to cling to the roof of that old house on the outskirts of Blackwood Falls. My husband Ethan thought it was a steal. 4 bedrooms, a huge yard, and for the price of a shoebox apartment downtown. But I felt the chill down my spine before I even stepped onto the broken porch stair. The first thing I noticed were the windows. All closed, but the curtains slightly parted, like someone had just peeked through and left the fabric disturbed. Ethan laughed when I mentioned it, said it was the wind. But there was no wind. None. The air was still, thick, and the trees around the house looked frozen in time. But the worst was waiting inside. The realtor, a short man in a suit too crisp for the place, barely touched the doorknob before the door creaked open on its own, groaning like a sigh. He paled but recovered fast. Oh, these old houses, a warped wood, you know. I didn't know. And I didn't believe him. Because when I stepped inside, I felt something brush past me. Not a draft, not a breath of air, but a presence. Like the hallway itself was breathing. The furniture was antique, the kind you'd find in a grandma's house, but something was off about the details. The mirrors were all fogged, even without dust. The walls had dark stains that formed patterns, almost like fingers dragged through them. And the dolls. God, the dolls, they were everywhere. On the mantel, the kitchen sideboard, even hanging from hooks in the hallway, like someone had placed them there on purpose. Porcelain dolls with half-chipped faces, glass eyes with no shine, dresses of yellowed lace. Some looked too new for an abandoned house. Lily, my 6-year-old, loved them. "Mommy, look, they're so pretty." She picked one up, a blonde in a blue dress, and I almost screamed. I don't know why, it just sent a jolt down my spine so sharp my hands tingled. Ethan gave me a weird look, but I couldn't explain. "How do you explain that?" For a second, I swear the doll's eyes turned to look at me. Night fell early and the house got worse. The bedroom we chose had a door that wouldn't close right. It always left a 2-inch gap no matter how hard you pushed. And the attic, well, no one had the nerve to go up there. The stairs were narrow, almost vertical, and the door at the top was locked with a rusted padlock. The realtor said he didn't have the key, that it must have been lost. But I swear, when I walked past it, I heard something dragging up there, slow, like someone was rearranging things. It happened the first night. I woke to a sharp crack. The bedroom door, which I'd left slightly ajar, was now wide open, slamming against the wall like someone had shoved it hard. And the hallway, dark, freezing, but with a figure standing at the far end. It wasn't human-shaped. It was thinner, more broken, like its bones were in the wrong places. Lily cried in the next room, and the thing turned its head toward the sound. Then it vanished. The next morning I found the blonde doll, the one Lily had picked up, on my bed. But it wasn't intact anymore. Its face was cracked, and its mouth, once a delicate smile, was now wide open, like it was screaming. When I picked it up to throw it away, I felt something wet on my fingers, like the doll had been drooling. Ethan still tried to rationalize it. "Rats, humidity, you're stressed from the move." But even he stopped talking when Lily's toys started moving on their own. Toy cars rolling across the floor with no one near them, the music box playing in the middle of the night. And once I saw someone in the bathroom. The door was slightly open, the mirror fogged, and outside, a shadow stood. Not breathing, not moving, just waiting. Lily started talking about a new friend who played with her at night. A girl in a blue dress. Lily wouldn't stop talking about this friend. At first, I thought it was just a kid's imagination, adjusting to the new house, making up stories. But then I started noticing the details. She described the girl as having a tattered blue dress, tangled blonde hair, and black eyes. "She doesn't have whites in her eyes, Mommy. It's all dark." One night I woke to Lily giggling in her room. A quiet, secretive laugh. I got up slowly. my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Her door was slightly open, and inside, beyond the dim glow of the nightlight, I saw my daughter sitting on her bed, talking to nothing. She raised her hands like she was holding someone's, and swayed her arms, humming, "Spin, spin, the doll falls to the floor." That's when the nightlight flickered. It wasn't a power outage. It was like something had passed through it, and in the corner of the room for a second I saw a shadow crouching. Small, child-sized, but with twisted shoulders, like it was carrying something on its back. Lily turned to it and smiled. "Do you want to play with Mommy too?" I almost screamed. I rushed into the room and grabbed Lily, scanning the space with my eyes. Nothing, just the sour smell of old baby powder and a cold that wouldn't leave my neck. Lily got mad. "You scared her. She doesn't like grown-ups." The next day, I found all the dolls in the house turned to face the wall. All of them. Even the ones on high shelves where Lily couldn't reach. Ethan finally started to get scared, but he still tried to rationalize. "Some old owner must have left this stuff here. Let's get rid of it all." He went up to the attic. The stairs creaked like they'd snap any second, and the air up there was heavy, suffocating. When he forced the rusted padlock, the door opened with a groan. And there it was. A whole room of dolls. Hundreds of them, sitting in perfect rows, like a silent audience. Some had their faces covered with cloth. Others had no eyes, just dark holes. In the center, a wooden chair, and on it a larger doll in a blue dress, its head slightly tilted like it was waiting. Ethan came down white as a sheet. "We have to get out of here." But the house wasn't going to let us leave that easily. That night, our bedroom door started slamming on its own. It wasn't the wind. It was someone pushing harder and harder until the hinges nearly gave out. And in the hallway, we heard footsteps. Child's footsteps. Running. Stopping right outside our door. Then a hand dragging across the wood like someone was trying to get in. Lily screamed from her room, and when I ran in, I found the floor covered in toys, all arranged in a perfect circle. In the center, the blonde doll, with its mouth wide open. Then the nightlight exploded. In the dark, I only heard Lily crying and something laughing, a low, wet sound like it was drowning. I scooped her up and ran for the front door, nearly tripping over something cold that darted away in the darkness. Ethan met us in the hallway, his phone flashlight shaking in his hand. "We have to go. Now." But the front door wouldn't open. Behind us, in the dark hallway, something started to sing. "Spin, spin. The doll comes to take you." The door wouldn't budge. Ethan threw his shoulder against it, sweating in the cold, while I held Lily, who sobbed with her face buried in my neck. The phone flashlight flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls. And in one of them I saw something that wasn't our reflection. A thin, elongated figure with fingers too long crawling toward us along the wall. "Ethan, please!" I screamed, and with one last shove the door finally gave. We stumbled into the cold rain outside, but the relief lasted less than a second. Because Lily wasn't crying anymore. She was staring at the house, a small empty smile on her face. She said, "We can't leave." The window to her room lit up suddenly, a yellow glow like a candle. And there it was. The silhouette of a child, hair floating but its head tilted at an impossible angle. Lily raised her hand and waved like she was saying goodbye. That's when I understood. The house didn't want us. It wanted Lily. Ethan didn't hesitate. We tore out of there in the car before dawn, never looking back. But in the back seat, under Lily's coat, something crunched. When I pulled the fabric aside, there it was. The blonde doll in the blue dress. This time, with its eyes wide open. I threw it out the window, but the second it hit the pavement, I heard a sharp scream, like a hurt child. The rearview mirror showed something rising from the road, something that wasn't a doll anymore. We never went back for our things, never spoke to the owner. I changed my phone number, deleted the address, pretended it never happened. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, Lily still whispers in the dark, "She misses me, Mommy." She says she's going to visit. And worse, I hear something laughing back. So bizarre. What did you think of the story? On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate it? Leave your opinion in the comments. That musty, sulfuric stench still clung to my clothes as I stepped into the paranormal convention hall in Savannah. It was October, and the air already had that biting chill, but nothing froze me to the bone like the smile of the man who owned the house we were investigating that night. He spotted me the second I walked in and made a beeline for me, like he already knew who I was. "You're the researcher, right? The one who deals with negative energy." It wasn't a question. It was a warning. The house sat on the outskirts of town. One of those old brick buildings with a wide porch and windows that looked like dead eyes. The kind of place you drive past and instinctively hit the gas. The owner, a tall guy named Edward, told us the house had been cleansed years ago after an entire family vanished inside it. It was blessed, prayed over, the whole 9 yards, he said, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to scrub something off. But then some idiots held a seance here and brought something back. We moved in slowly, gear in hand. Cameras, recorders, the works. The air inside was thick, like someone had forgotten to breathe for decades. My team spread out through the rooms, but I stayed in the main living area, where the floorboards groaned without anyone stepping on them. That's when I felt the first chill, the kind that slithers up your spine and whispers in your ear. Someone's watching you. I turned toward the darkest corner of the room, and there was something there, not a shadow, not a figure, a presence. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. It's all in your head, I thought. Then the thermometer plummeted from 68 degrees to 41 degrees in 3 seconds. The air turned icy, and my breath fogged in front of my face. That's when I heard the first whisper. It wasn't a voice. It was like someone had dragged their nails down a chalkboard inside my mind. "You tire so easily, don't you?" Out of nowhere, a crushing exhaustion hit me. My legs turned to jelly, and I had to brace myself against the wall to stay upright. My thoughts started to darken, like ink bleeding into my mind. It'd be so easy to take the knife from your bag and open your wrist, or theirs. I glanced at my team. They were laughing about something, completely oblivious. They felt nothing, just me. That's when I saw her, standing in the hallway like she'd always been there. A gaunt skeletal thing with arms too long and twisted antlers curling back like a sickly deer. The eyes, God, the eyes were just 2 black pits, but I knew she could see me. And worse, she was smiling. My hand shook so hard I dropped the recorder. The noise made my team turn. "You okay?" Jason asked. I opened my mouth to scream, but all that came out was a whimper. The creature took a step forward, and the stench of rot filled the air. That's when Denise, our team's sensitive, lunged in front of me with a crucifix. "Get out of her!" she shouted, and I felt something inside me snap like a chain breaking. The creature didn't leave. It just stepped back, still smiling. And then, it vanished. But the weight in the air lingered. Denise grabbed my shoulders. "There's something seriously wrong here. This isn't a ghost. It's something worse." I looked back at the hallway. Empty. But I knew. She was still there, just waiting. We bolted out of that house like hell itself was on our heels. But as I glanced back through the car window, I swear I saw 2 black dots staring at me from the attic window. And the worst part? I felt it. She wasn't done with me. We'd barely pulled out of the driveway when the car radio started screeching. Pure static, the kind that sounds like muffled screams. Denise tried to turn it off, but the button wouldn't budge. "She doesn't want us to leave," she muttered, and no one had the guts to ask who she was. I still felt that bone-deep exhaustion, like something had drained the life out of me. My hands trembled in my lap, and the dark thoughts hadn't gone away. "You'll go home and find your mom asleep. It'd be so easy." I closed my eyes and clutched the crucifix Denise had given me. The voice in my head laughed. We made it to the hotel, but none of us wanted to be alone. We crammed into the same room like kids afraid of the dark. Jason turned on the TV to drown out the silence, but the signal only picked up 1 channel. And guess what? Ghostly transmission, nothing but static. Then for a second, the image cleared. It was the living room of that damned house, and something moved in the background. The TV shut off on its own before we could see it clearly. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, and all I heard was breathing. Heavy, wet, like someone had their mouth pressed against the receiver. "Cut the crap," I said, trying to sound tough. Then the voice came, and it wasn't human. A raspy whisper layered with something that sounded like overlapping voices. "You left something behind. I'll bring it to you." The call was coming from inside the room. We bolted like our lives depended on it, leaving everything behind. In the hotel hallway, the lights flickered, and I swore I saw figures lurking in the corners. Denise screamed at us to get to the car. "We can't stay here, it feeds on fear." We drove aimlessly, just trying to put distance between us and it. But the exhaustion hit again, and we pulled into an empty gas station. That's when I saw her again, standing across the street under a flickering streetlight. This time she wasn't smiling. She was just staring, like I belonged to her now. Denise yanked my arm. "Don't look, she wants you to look." But it was too late. I already knew what she wanted. She wasn't going to kill me. She wanted me to take her with me, home into my life. That's when the call came. My mom. I answered with my heart in my throat. "Honey, there's someone in the house," she whispered, her voice thick with panic. "They're banging on the walls, scratching at the door, and they're using your voice." My blood turned to ice. The creature had followed me, not physically, spiritually, like I'd carried her in my soul. Denise snatched the phone from my hand and spoke firmly. "Ma'am, grab some coarse salt. Lock yourself in a room and do not open the door for anything. We're on our way." She hung up and looked at me. "It's latched onto you, but we can cut it loose." The drive to my house was the longest of my life. Every streetlight we passed flickered out. Every car radio whispered things I didn't want to hear. When we arrived, the house was dark, not because the power was out. It was like the darkness had leaked in through the windows. We rushed inside. My mom was locked in the bathroom, screaming, and in the hallway. She was there, not like before. Now she looked almost solid, the antlers longer, the eyes deeper, and she spoke in a voice that was almost mine. "You brought me home. Now I stay." Denise didn't hesitate. She threw salt on the floor, lit incense, and started praying in Latin. The creature shrieked, a sound that shattered the windows. It lunged but stopped like it had hit an invisible wall. That's when I felt it. A searing pain in my chest, like something was being ripped out of me. The last thing I saw was Denise splashing holy water on the creature. It dissolved like smoke, but the scream echoed for seconds before fading into silence. I blacked out. When I woke up, it was daylight. My mom was safe. The house was quiet. But I knew. She hadn't really left. She just retreated. To this day, when I'm alone in the dark, I hear footsteps in the hallway. And sometimes when I look in the mirror, my eyes, they're a little darker. And I never went back to Savannah, because I'm afraid she'd want to come home. And if you've made it all the way here, it's because that last story hit you too. There are things we don't see, but we feel. And that goes for these stories, and for the connection we've built here together. If this kind of content gave you chills and kept you hooked tonight, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. And prove you stayed until the end by leaving this phrase in the comments: "I'm not afraid of the devil." That's how I'll know who the truly fearless ones are. Oh, and drop a like too. Not just because I asked, but because this conversation deserves to keep going. There's another video right here that carries the same heavy atmosphere. Click it and keep going with me over there. I'll see you in the next story.